Next question here, by Siphon. By the way, Siphon, I believe, is putting out a video on his Victor. He played hundreds of games on this thing. I've been waiting patiently for this thing to come out because his win rate was like insane. He's a big Victor stan. So he said it was like 102 pages that he wrote out as a script
Oh,
beforehand.
I saw that tweet.
Yeah, that's him. But we're just waiting for the epic manifesto of Victor to come out.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Cypher from Cypher TCG, and today we have the long-awaited Victor Goldmane, High and Mighty. But is he really high and mighty? Who knows? We'll find out in this guide. I've hyped this video up a lot, to the point where I'll be completely honest with you guys, break the fourth wall a little bit. I actually recorded this about 2 days ago, and I just got done editing it. And I was not satisfied. My energy was very low. Summoning over a lot of things, and there was a lot of things that need cleaned up. And if I'm going to hype up, if the community is going to be waiting on this guide, I need to deliver much more than I did. I owe it to you guys. So we have the revamped guide. I've touched up a lot of things. I've drunk a Monster Energy drink, and let's get going. So one important thing that I want you guys to know, at the time of making this guide, this is accurate as of February 2024. If you're watching this a year from now, who knows how much this stuff will be accurate? Will Victor even be legal at that time? Who honestly knows? But keep in mind the context, this is February 2024 when this guide is the most accurate. Like I said, things are subject to change with new sets and meta shifts. So why are we playing Victor? We're playing Victor because we have the ability to have efficient Guardian turns on the majority of turn cycles. That really nice Tunic Bravo list that's came out lately. You get to have those like really efficient, like really cool turns. About 3 of every 5 turns, and that's very powerful. Having the ability to draw multiple cards throughout the game leads to stuffing powerful turns, or extending the value on a turn cycle. What that means is your ninja or brute or whatever opponent is like playing Art of War or Blood Rush spells, you have the ability to just gain an extra 3 life, or stop an additional 1 hit, just your ability to draw cards if you make gold tokens. Alternatively, if you drew cards somewhere on defense, you now have the ability to have offense where there's a where you may not have. And not a lot of heroes have that ability to know that they can do that on a dime. Lastly, you have access to one of the best equipment sets in the whole entire game when it comes to utility and block value. So there are going to be 2 kinds of offensive cards in Victor. The first one is Disruption. The second one is just big numbers. Talking about the Disruption and the numbers. If we were to only focus, and misspelled by the way, breaking the fourth wall, if we were to only focus on one kind of card in our deck, we would lack flexibility. For example, if we only had Disruption, we would have a hard time killing our enemy due to less reach on average. They don't make 79 power cards that disrupt your opponent because that would be broken. They make things more reasonably powered, so you can actually defend if you'd like. Vice versa, if we only sent big numbers, if we only sent that 79,000 damage every single turn, or our cards just did that, it just becomes a numbers game. And the fact that we are letting our opponent run free, they might have chances to goldfish and just beat us, right? And we don't want that. You will always need to do both. So your opponents cannot consistently game plan against you, and you can really have those mix-ups that are just wonderful to have, especially in Guardian, which is not common. Get to have mix-ups. So comparing Victor to Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh!, even though these games are all different, you can draw some comparisons with the decks. Talking about Victor and Yu-Gi-Oh!, I like to compare it to Zodiac. For Zodiac and Victor, both decks tend to make consistent 1-for-1 trades and 2-for-1 trades, sometimes even gaining resources in the process. They can both grind the majority of decks out power cards, and they can switch between a very aggressive, mid-range, or control game plans, all within the same shell, or even the same game. Going on to Magic the Gathering next, I believe Victor has a lot of things with Eldrazi that it shares. Both decks can grind any deck into dust, or throw big numbers and kill your opponents quickly. It can turn little resources into massive gains. They can snowball very quickly if they go unchecked. Both can make value trades while gaining resources. So what will this deck teach you? I have the adoption that every single deck can actually teach you something about the game. Even the really bad decks, they can always teach you something. What will this deck teach you? This deck will teach you how to block. It will teach you how to understand value. It will teach you how to gain tempo. It will teach you efficient turn cycles, equipment usage, and lastly, mid-game adaptation. So, we're going to look at our matchups, and for those that are not following along on the doc, or have not play tested the deck that I posted on my Twitter, here is the deck list that we'll be using in the video, and this is accurate as of making the guide. If for some reason in the near future I make any changes, you guys can obviously follow the Twitter, and those changes will be there. As of right now, this is the list. Take a moment and screenshot it if you guys would like, or just kind of internalize it in that big brain of yours. And let's get going to the next slides. Starting off with Victor versus Ninja. We're going to prefer to go second in this matchup. We want to go second because this is going to be more of a tempo race. We are not trying to play a very slow game to them. We do have the ability to, which we will talk about later, obviously. But the fact that we can usually take the brunt of the ninja's damage turn 1, we can stop important on hits if we need to. If we lick a few damage, it's fine. Then we can go to the real first turn of the game, have our cards, be able to send damage, and if they choose a block, it now leads into a snowball effect where now they're sending less damage against us, and they can just really establish tempo very early just by purely going second. So most ninjas will be presenting links into you. Oh, sorry, I need to back up. Going into the sideboard, we add 2 CNCs, 3 challenge to hold the line. Most ninjas will be presenting links due to your ability to block before a mass momentum can trigger. Obviously, mass momentum being the one where if you hit 3 chain links in a row, the third one or revive as an attack, you get to draw a card. And we can easily stuff that just by blocking the second or third chain link. We can block 3 to 6 damage on most turn cycles if we would like, and send big numbers back that they cannot block well. Is this always going to occur? No, but this is something that we can do very often if we would like. You actually will win the vast majority of your classes, which in turn will get rid of powerful cards from their deck if you're using Grindstone, or gives us some extra value if you're using defensive classes. They will take damage on most turn cycles, but few tempo gaining on hits that we can ignore. These things being like Snatch, Mounting Anger, technically a long chain link that can trigger links. These are the ways they can actually establish tempo and all that stuff. But for the most part, most of their deck will just be vanilla damage to us. We don't actually have to care. Arsenal Hold the Line is great in this matchup because you'll need to stuff their Art of War turns, and getting 5 defensive value out of 1 card is on par with the rest of our defensive tools, and is key to winning the matchup. If they do present mass momentum, as I said earlier, you can normally block the second or third attack, and it should stuff their turn and prevent them from triggering their mask. Victor versus Kano. We're going to go second in this matchup. If the Kano has the choice, they will always put you first. They will let you do whatever you're going to do. And if they choose to do what Tog likes to call cycle flipping, they'll just wait for you to play as many cards as you can, and then they'll flip off the top and see if they can like chunk you for 5 plus damage. Well, versus if we go second, yes, they can establish things like E-Pods and all that stuff. But kind of going back to like the Ninja example, we can actually start taking cards out of their hand, and their offense is just going to be less, and that is exactly what we want. We don't want them to be able to keep a lot of cards, because the more cards they keep, the more damage they're going to be able to do to us. And because we're only running AB1, our ability to block it is just much less. So the less damage we can have them do to us on average, because this will be a chaining effect just by going second, the better. For sideboard, we're going to be doing +1 Arcane Lantern, -1 Arm Mages, +2 CNC, +2 Macho, +2 Hold the Line. Right now, Kano thankfully is not a large percentage of the meta. Even with that percentage, most Kanos are not very good. Look at me, obviously. You can rush down these unprepared Kanos, however, seasoned Kanos will freely just kill you. You will have to get pressure on the Kano player. The more time you give them, the easier it is for you to lose. Because you're presenting a one, they may not be stacking into you, but if they're just trained mentally to always stack in every single Guardian, they're easily just going to get a pitch deck that can deal upwards of 50, sometimes 90 damage. Go ahead and check my Twitter header. Sometimes you still 90 damage with a pitch stack, and your opponent can't do anything about it, and you can do it much less so because you're only presenting every one. Because cards like Steadfast and Oasis being in the format, the Kano player might be hesitant to combo off, even if they have combo, if you present cards in hand. So, knowing when to strategically maybe do a more underrate turn just to prevent the Kano from going off, or if they miscalculate how much damage they do, you might actually be able to get out alive on the other side. Is it 100% likely all the time? No, but we want to be able to play to our outs. You do want to keep in mind the power cards that they've went through. Cards like Aether Swindle, cards like Sonic Boom, Aether Wildfire, Lessons in Lava, and Blazing Aether. We have Victor versus Runeblades. This is another matchup again, like the rest of them. We want to go second. We want to be able to establish tempo very early. You want to take cards out of their hand early, and can't really do that going first. Like I said, the best things we can do going first is like Mantra Grande or Terra Center into something, but those turns are not often be able to be happening blind. They're just not going to happen all the time. For sideboards, we're going to do one Arcane Lantern, taking out our Aria Mages, put in 2 CNC, 3 Trounce, and 3 Zealous Belting. For both Viscerai and Vincent, normally they will give you plenty of room to have bigger Zealous or Mouse turns. They have the on-turn, off-turn thing I like to talk about a lot on my stream. Well, they'll spend 1 turn setting up a very powerful turn, like make some Rune Chance, or get a very powerful attack on Arsenal, because maybe they blocked up. Then they're going to have their nice turn. There are going to be certain turn cycles where they're going to be able to flow powerful turn, powerful turn, powerful turn. I would not expect that all the time. If they do that, then they do that. And there's a lot of decks that can't really stop that, where, again, on average, they're going to be on turn, off turns. Specifically talking about Vincent's Runegate cards, their on hits, in air quotes, mostly are nothing to worry about. It is mostly the split damage that we are concerned with. Like I said, there are very, very few times where the actual on hit is the thing I would do, and you'll see me like block all the arcane and the physical most of the time. If I just have an extra card in my hand, I'll just block at least some of it, just to be efficient and preserve life, but for the most part, it is not needed in the matchup. If they do start stacking Rune Chants and playing very slow, you need to be very aggressive, because you'll need to get cards out of their hand. You need to prevent them from stacking Rune Chants, because the more Rune Chants they stack, the harder you have to go. At the time, there is a very defensive Viscerai deck going out, OTK Viscerai. While I check the channel, you might have a certain YouTuber that you might be watching that has a video on that. If they start doing that, you cannot give them room, because if they can start double carding you and start making at least 2 Rune Chants a turn, that you're just going to lose that game every single time. You got to be aggressive. You got to make them use cards. Do not let Melvern's guys under any circumstance hit. It'll lose you too much HP over the long run and tempo over the game. And lastly, when it comes to pitching to AB versus blocking, it's very contextual, depending on your hand. I cannot give you a flowchart on when to pitch and when to block. It will depend on your hand and the state of the game. Victor versus Dromai. For this match, we're doing +1 Arcane Lantern, taking our Aria Mages, +2 CNC, +2 Macho, +3 Zealous Belting, +2 Hold the Line. This matchup right now is very warped, and it's depending on 2 things. It's depending on the build and the skill level of the Dromai. It is very unfortunate that it is like that. It is just how Lucius is. A lot of stuff is very contextual. There's a lot of Palette Cleanser Lucius players, and there's also a lot of Elite players playing Dromai, and Prism for that matter. You just will never kind of know what you're going up against and how the matchup will go. It's just kind of unfortunate. By the time I'm making this video, Redline Dromai is the most popular version. Learning how to play against Big Dragon Dromai is going to be very important. When it comes to playing versus Redline, I currently play the matchup very similar to Ninja, and I'll ignore most of their stuff. Unless I just absolutely have to, or if I just have a dead card, I'll interact with them a little bit. But I usually choose to be the beatdown when I can. When it comes to killing dragons, I still want to kill Moragai, Chroma, and Kylura. These are the ones that give them the most efficiency from one dragon, at least when it comes into the context of our deck. Because you're presenting Grindstone, you're able to one-shot 5+ HP dragons, which obviously would be Necro and Nuvia. But the trade-off is you get to play with Arcane Lantern, which Jomatai cannot kill. I do think that is very important. Talking about Big Dragon specifically, it is difficult due to the amount of defensive tools common with the board state. You won't really be able to rush them down, and they'll just be all in on making the board state. Honestly, not great. But at the time of making this guide, I found most success going into Big Dragon is just playing a slow game, kind of treating it similar to Ice Prism, just trying to run them out of dragons the best I can. Speaking of Prism, this is one of the matchups we actually do want to go first, for a few reasons. If we were to go second, some of the things that can happen is the Prism can just play Aura pass, and their life kind of sucks. They can even play a Figment and pass. They can send a boosted Herald and they could have the ability to play around a Popper. There's just too many negative stuff that goes wrong. Where if we go first, most of that stuff cannot happen. The reason why, unless we have specifically something like Macho Grande in our hand, we don't do anything. We just move to instep. Now it's on the Prism player to now possibly play an Aura or do something and take a risk of taking damage or just losing the card that they invested. They might still do it just to filter, but normally there's just too much of a risk associated with that and they won't do it. Going into the sideboard, we're doing +1 Arcane Lantern, -1 Iron Mages, +2 CNC, +2 Macho Grande, +3 Zealous Belting, +2 Hold the Line. Again, I have more success going first, hitting them as hard as I can throughout the matchup. They run some out of no blocks and 2 blocks, so you actually can leak damage. You have to play a very high-paced game versus any illusionist, specifically against Prism. If you try to play like a long game, try to like play it slow, you're just going to lose against every illusionist. You're just going to lose. They'll outvalue you in too many turn cycles, and you're just going to be shit out of luck. However, if they present Iris, you can just freely swing at the auras. Unless they double aura you, they'll fail to generate enough advantage. Alternatively, depending on the speed they get out the auras, this is not something I put in the document, depending on the speed of your hand and their hands. If you're drawing a bunch of Go Again, or just really big attacks, you can actually just play an aggro and send it at them. If they want to establish an aura, you can tell them to take 10 to do that. You can play the matchup like that. The only issue is, again, they will play some amount of defensive tools, and they will be able to stuff you at least 1 or 2 times, and they'll be able to get advantage off of it. But again, playing versus illusionists is very contextual. You will have to always be thinking on the fly what the main objective is. Is there anything you need to concern yourself with on the board? But that will come with time. Both builds do have the ability to ALS loop. If you guys don't know what the ALS loop is, firstly, I want you guys to be able to look at it in full at Phenol's channel. He does a very powerful breakdown. He goes through every single point of the lock. I'll briefly explain it here. Basically, you have a Genesis on board. You have 2 ALS, 1 in graveyard, 1 in hand usually, and you have an Avalon. Is the figment that has Rebirth on it. They'll swing with an Avalon. They'll put an ALS on top. They'll play an ALS. You have to tag it. They're going to go to their turn. They're going to put a card in for Genesis. They're going to swing Avalon to put ALS on top of their deck. And they're just going to keep repeating this until you're dead or you run out of cards. The only way you can break this lock is if they have a Merciful Retribution on field and their ALS just goes to their graveyard. Then they're sold, then they're just bad, obviously. But more likely than not, they just establish the lock without enough cards in deck, or you are running something like Time Skippers. At this current moment, I do not believe Time Skippers to be a necessary evil, but if Prism and even Dromai uptick in rate enough, it is a consideration. But when it comes to ALS loop, you always want to keep track of the number of ALSs in Genesis you have seen. Track the known and unknown locations of these cards. If they pitched them, you know you don't have to worry about them as much unless they shuffle with a Prism effect or Halo effect. And lastly, just avoid Pheno. I swear, he's just going to get a power bonus because Prism's meta again. Just avoid him. Let someone else lose to him. Next, talk about Victor versus Dash. In this matchup, we like to go first. The reason why we want to go first is because Similar to the Prism, they have a lot of things they can do going first by just playing an item or loading counters on their items. They can actually filter their whole entire hand if they want to by just consistently loading their pistol. Even if it has counters, and they just will look at you and be like, cool, hopefully your hand's not awful. And usually it's going to be awful. So that's why we want to go first. Um, and also doubly, we were on the offense because again they're going to be running some amount of items, so they might have no blocks. Also, um, if they're boosting versus you, which normally they're not going to if they're playing correctly, but in a world where they choose to boost, they're just going to lose cards even faster. They'll just mill the top 4 cards of the deck at the start of the game pretty much, and that's just really good if you're trying to fatigue them. Uh, Going to the sideboard, we're adding +2 CNC, +2 Mantra Grande, +1 Pulverize. Specifically, the Pulverize is a hedge against Control Dash specifically. Again, Hybrid Dash, the Pulv isn't as necessary. They will have some turns where they try to pivot and has some amount of offense, non-pistol related. But when it comes to a hybrid, Control Dash specifically, they will give you infinite room, and they'll be also running 3-for-7s. So the Pulverize can actually neuter some of those 3-for-7s, or just make one pistol shot really suck. So that's also good there. And then we're also doing +3 Trounce, +3 Zealous. And if you're placing a high aggro dash, you're going to be trying to fatigue them, just blocking out a bunch. Possibly fatigue through damage if you have the option, but usually you won't. If it is a hybrid dash, you're going to do a beatdown plan. And if it's control dash, you're obviously just going to be very sad because the control dash is literally made to beat you. And we're not running any rampart tech, and we just kind of slowly die if we don't get ahead very early and just keep the pressure on. You will know what type of dash you're facing based on the starting equipment plus items. If they present Foundry Heart plus Pounder, they're a pure boost. If they present Foundry Heart plus Chamber, that means they're hybrid. If they present Tunic plus Evos and Chamber, they're control. Victor versus Riptide and Azalea. In this matchup, we want to go second. The reason why is similar to when you go against Guardian. There's only very few cards you don't want to see on turn 1 when they have access to Dominate. They would need to have multiple buffs, the arrow / knock, and have the mana to do everything, like, because all those arrows are not free, and they run a lot of heavy reds. So realistically, I am not really concerned with them just be able to like clap me turn 1. If they do it, then they do it. I think again, it is much more important to get the tempo and also have the ability to filter your hand than it is to just Arsenal pass and not let them do their thing. When we established earlier, it's more likely than not going to be that bad for you. In this matchup, we're doing +2 CNC, +2 Pomo. Only into Azalea specifically, we're doing +3 Staunch. Because obviously Riptide, a lot of times we'll be running Dreadbore, and you just kind of just get clapped if you present D-Reacts into them. And then +3 Trounce. CNC is actually the best card in this matchup. It's a surefire way to get tempo back if it is lost. Even more so Riptide due to the amount of D-Reacts they play, because they'll either have to give you 2 cards, or they're going to lose their arsenal. Both just is immense value. You'll take either. Riptide will actually normally play 65 cards into you. Yes, it is pretty cringe, but hey, they're playing a bad hero, so let them cook. But actually, you fatigue them by damage more often than not. The amount of times Riptide will present like 74 cards into me, don't ask me why. I present 60 or even or 65 sometimes, and I'll have like 20 cards left in deck. There'll be like 1 or 2 cards left, and they're just dead. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Thank God you like presented like 79,000 cards into me and still got fatigued. As the fatigue deck. But versus Azalea, you do want to pace yourself. There will be some amount of turns that you would just not be able to stop and take a massive chunk of damage and lose all tempo. Do not be worried about that. Again, it's just going to happen. Just prepare yourself for it. Move on to the next turn cycle and try to get it back. If you can force the game into a very mid-range standoff, you can actually win the game due to the high amount of damage of your average card. What tokens you have versus Riptide is very important. As you guys know, seen me on Twitter, I did lose to Riptide very early in my testing. It was just because I didn't understand how to play that matchup. I went to try to just play a lot of value turns and just try to fatigue them like they're blocking. It just didn't work because my might tokens, and what you guys see here, just turned on way too many of their traps. They got way too much value. Or realistically, if you just play a very beat down game plan, yes, even still, their might tokens might get you a little bit. But I would rather be able to just fatigue them through damage or just kill them, and then they give me with traps sometimes versus them giving traps sometimes, and also just have infinite pressure against me. Victor versus Guardian. Right now, I want to go second. For you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times. I'm gonna keep saying it. The amount of cards I do not want to see on the first turn is so few. I'd rather have the tempo. So we're going second. We're taking out our Grindstone, our RM Mages. We're adding our Sledge. We're taking out 3 Chokeslam, 3 Spinal Crush. We're adding 2 CNC, adding 2 Macho Grande, 1 Pulve, 2 Pommel, 3 Staunch, 3 Zealous Belting. So the big thing I want to preach in this matchup is value. Value is king. Whoever just usually outvalues the opponent will win. There's very small edge cases where whoever had like the biggest like value number every single turn cycle don't win, but those games don't come up often. Looking at their deck construction will tell you exactly how they want to win. I mean, that goes for every single deck, but importantly here. If you see cards like Red Removable and Rampart, they're going to want to take the game long, versus if you see Tunic Anthos, mostly with Bravo, they're going to try to push most of their damage on their Tunic turns and look to punch with massive damage or impactful on-hits on that turn cycle. So, when you see that Tunic counter at 2, send whatever you can. Send whatever you can. Because they're going to try to keep some amount of cards to be able to like dominate something big. Now, because of the Tunic counters sustaining our deck, it does give them the ability to block a little bit and still send something. But basically, you being aggressive turns off them being able to do go again into that or dominate into that. It's just that. If it's just a debilitate, just a chokeslam or something, you can defend that way easier than it being dominated or a go again and attack into that. Normally, you want to be the last person to block with equipment. I think the store owner of Total Game Experience said it best. When he plays Guardian Mirrors, he literally forgets he has equipment until he's at like 10 HP, and then he goes, oh my gosh, I have equipment I can block with. That's awesome. Because, like I said, 9 times out of 10, you're able just to give 2 cards and still have very fine turns in the Guardian Mirror. Or you don't need to use your equipment. Because especially once the game gets very small and you guys are both under 10, dominate attacks start going out. Realistically, pushing extra damage with cards is going to be more important. So being able to hedge with equipment is going to be more important. Where the person that is at like 5 with no equipment and the person at 3 has all their equipment, the person at 3 is going to win every single time. Another big thing is always keep an attack in the arsenal if you're able to. This kind of goes into the thing that we're talking about. If we're able to block with 2 cards, or even sometimes 1, just depending, and we're able to send something up from our arsenal, even if we're not cycling it, it is just like block 6, then Thunderquake for 10. That's a pretty good turn cycle for us, and we'll take that almost every single time. Ling on Sledge on your Tunic turns is mega. A 1 card 6 is massive. I would like for someone to tell me the amount of decks that can do a 1 card 6 without jumping the through a bunch of hoops. All we have to do is wait for our Tunic counter and have a blue, and we can do it. We don't need anything special. And trying to be the aggro deck or trying just to be the control deck is strictly wrong. You have to understand your role on each turn cycle. There will be some hands where you just look at the hand and you just have to tell yourself you're blocking 9 or you're blocking 12. There'll be some turn cycles where you look and you'll have to understand, I'm just going to take 10 because I have to sit in my whole entire hand. The Guardian Mirror is very unique in that sense, in my opinion, where it literally will change almost every single turn. No one has it back-to-back turns usually, unless they're kind of strong than that. Victor versus Levia. We're going to go second. No World, where I'm going first, versus Levia. I'll explain it in the tips and tricks section why. When it comes to sideboard, we're going to do +2 CNC, +2 Poem, +2 Hold the Line. Things you want to look out for are Art of Warrior, 2 Extend, and Dread Screamers. They allow way more damage, that's pretty rough if not taken lightly. Best combo is Dread and the Growling, that is 13 damage from 2 cards, that's pretty good. And you never want to swing turn 0. They'll block with every single card they can to fuel their graveyard. Because a lot of things they play say banish the card from a graveyard. And if they don't have a graveyard, yeah, it gets kind of awkward to play a card that says you have to banish the card from a graveyard when you don't have a graveyard. One other big thing to look out is the recursion engine. This is doing Hows and Ghostlies. The other really good thing about the recursion engine is there are easy ways to fill the graveyard back up. So that thing we saw about denying the graveyard, they can easily do it with the recursion engine, and you might be in some trouble. Holding Poem to keep with them Transformers key to winning. What this means is when they're in about the 20 to like 16 mark, what year that was, obviously. But when they're around that age, they're going to be looking to flip. So if you can send a bunch of damage at them, get them feeling comfortable, going like, okay, I'm just going to flip. You can surprise them with the pummel, get them under the threshold where they can flip. Their deck can just fall apart. I don't believe Levy Redeem is amazing against us with how we are playing. So really just keep that pummel. The first pummel you can kind of use loosely. I personally always want to have access to my pummel again when they're on that 20 to 16 mark. You want to find spots to push damage. They run an amount of no blocks. They just literally won't be able to stop you. And they've even added 2 blocks with heavy hitters coming out. So kind of some of the other decks, there will be times where you can just free leak damage. There's not much they can do. The more cards they have and manage with Blood Debt, the more you actually want to push them. They'll need to keep cards that with Blood Debt, which can translate into free damage. And lastly, just like Prism, just avoid Bansant. Just don't play him. Mo Bogsley, I know you're going to be watching this Mo Bogsley. Avoid Mo Bogsley too. Or at least people are freaks. Victor versus Reinar. In this matchup, we want to go first. Going to our sideboard, we want to do +2 CNC, +1 Pulverize, +3 Trounce, +2 Hold the Line. Reinar can actually be a very hard matchup for any Guardian because the damage is forced on you. Reinar loves turn 0. He can easily force plenty of damage and force there to be a life gap at the start of the game when there's sometimes it's going to be really hard for us to make up. It's like when we blue Macho Grande or red Macho Grande. So on turn 1, they're doing the exact same thing to us. So starting off with a life lead and then getting the redraw is mega. Blood Rush spells can gain a lot of health advantage. There are some damages you cannot prevent on those turns. A lot of Reiner's damage actually does come from barraging beatdowns. It's a free intimidate, forces the opponent to either block with 2 non-equipment cards, or just take some damage from a boosted attack. It is even better because it's actually any brute attack. It's not just attack actions. They can beat down claw or beat down hammer. What was it? Club? It's a club. They can beat down clubless. They have access to that on if the game is very small. So just keep that in mind. And under no circumstances, unless someone is paying you money, unless you are win trading, do not get less than 2 live versus a brute. They will just kill you with Reckless Swing every time. Even if they don't play it in their list, they'll still play it in. They'll still somehow manifest it when you're at 2, and you will die every single time because the damage is not blockable. Victor versus KO. This is another matchup we want to go first. Even on a random 4-card hand, KO does have the ability just to spike enough damage where we'll just leak a massive amount of damage while blocking with our own hand. Also, they have the ability to just cast spells as turn 1 and set themselves up for a very powerful turn 2. So when it comes to sideboard, we're going to do +2 CNC, +1 Pulverize, +2 Trounce, +2 Hold the Line. KO builds have shifted towards the ability to play more of a mid-range game plan, so fatiguing is not the first option anymore. Similar to Levia, KO will have some amount of no blocks, so you will have spots where you can actually freely push damage. Chokeslam is actually one of the most important cards of the matchup due to the KO hero ability. They cannot gain attacks, so there come 6s, and now their deck kind of sucks. Do not get less than 2 life. Please. God, please. Do not get less than 2 life, or at 2 life against a brute. You will die to Reckless Swing every time, and then you'll have to sign someone's Reckless Swing. If you know, you know. You do want to pay attention to the chess piece they run. If you see Hold and Cross Wrap, their harms are going to try to just slam you. If you see Tunic, they do have the option to play a little bit of a slower game if they need to, but that is going to be the telltale sign of how they want to win the game. Victor versus Dorinthia. Here we want to go second. Uh, One of the only few downsides of going second here is if they present Dawn Blade for 3, a lot of times you just have to give up your home turn hand, even if you have good cards. Just because of the threat of them leaking damage against you, having go again, and then maybe leak again, just depending on how you block. Can suck. I'd rather just be like, cool, you send 3, I'll give you my hand, I don't care. Is what it is. And then be able to just gather tempo from there. Going to the sideboard, we do +2 CNC, +3 Staunch, +3 Zealous Belting. Thing to note is Dorless have gotten way more aggressive since Heavy Hitters came out, introducing a lot of power cards to Warrior. Dory has no real null hits, most of her damage is just fake. She has no disruption. You have the option to disrespect her if you find a lot of go again early. However, Dory's ability to snowball will force you to block out on a few turn cycles of the game, so do expect that. And on average, her pumps will be +3 damage, so keep that in mind if they have extra cards in hand. If they block 6, and this is the way I always do it. If they swing 6, I always expect 9. If they swing 3, I expect 6. /9, depending on how many cards they have, obviously. But if you end up having extra dead cards in your hand that don't contribute much, you can look to overblock and just prevent them from getting a hit, and just keep the counters off. CNC is one of the best cards in the matchup versus Dory. She relies on Arsenal to make big tempo plays, and removing that or 2 cards from their hand is a massive win. If you consistently have key reprise cards, this is important. If you consistently have key reprise cards in their hand, do not block. Since that does come with time and understanding what the reprise cards' values are. If they do present Great Axe, treat it as the same as Guardian. If they present Hatchet, you play a beatdown strategy. Victor versus Bolton, and we will obviously be talking about switch and combo. We're going to prefer to go second here. For sideboard, we're doing +2 CNC, +2 Pommel, +3 Trounce. Normally, Bolton will be presenting Raiden to you. However, if they do present Sabers, you can expect Sinks, Fates, Soul Shields, and Shunts. They will just try to stuff your big turns and still combo off, because you can be weak to combo. One thing I do want to note, because I don't believe I actually talk about it here, is if they do end up presenting Sabers into you and reaching combo, to pretty much just save your armor. And it's fine if you leak 1 to 2 damage on a sword swing. It's totally fine. They'll mill a good portion of their deck, and then you can fatigue them from there. Realistically, what they should do is just pray that you don't have the nuts every single turn, and they can just triple illuminate you. If they triple illuminate you, you're just dead. Just straight up, you're just dead. There's nothing you can do about it. Most of the cards from your deck will pump their cards because you're mulling mostly attacks. So leaking damage is likely if you block very poorly. Their combo will remove a large number of their deck, so again, keep that in mind when it comes to fatigue. Victor versus Olympia. Again, we want to go second. We want to establish tempo. For this matchup, we're doing +2 CNC, +2 Pommel, +3 Trounce, +2 Hold the Line. Right now, this hero is actually not very popular, and its current best build is not known. However, its most popular build right now is Hatchet's Aggro. It is a low sample size, just do keep that in mind. It's a very low sample size. Right now, I'm just playing a very standard beatdown plan. They don't really present a lot of one-hits, they just represent value, which you kind of don't care. If they do present Great Axe, they will have next to no pressure, and you can just play a beatdown game plan. And if it's a Saber's Hot Streak, again, you'll play a beatdown game plan. Victor versus Kasai. We're going to go second here. No reason to fill the graveyard with reds and yellows. Going on to the sideboard, we're doing +2 CMC, +2 Pommel, +2 Mantra Grande, +1 Pulverize, +3 Trounce, +2 Hold the Line. I will openly say this. I have been experimenting after making this guide of cutting Chokeslam. It's just going to be a 4 for 8 in this matchup. I do like how some builds of Kasai are, where they have been able to grind the Guardian player out of cards. I haven't been able to tell if it's just a player issue, or if it's just how the deck is being played. I'm kind of unsure of that, but for right now, I'm keeping Chokeslam in. But I can also see where Wood is taken out. Gasai is purely a grindy mid-range hero, and aggro list has not yet been successful. If they present Saber Hot Stricken unit, that's going to be very standard. Could technically be Saber Saber. It's not going to be much of a difference there. It'll just be some play patterns will be slightly different, but risk that they won't change the turn cycles that much. Normally, you can no blocks most turns that don't have a gold or a copper attached to them. And she won't run many pump reactions that affect the current weapon. What I mean is, unlike Dory, where Dory will pump the current attack that she is using, Kasai normally will be pumping the next attack. So she'll give like the current attack go again, and then pumping the next one. Some people have tested Sledge into Kasai. It is worth exploring. They have had success. I'm currently unsure. I've kind of been able to do whatever against Kasai and be pretty successful, but if that is something you would like to try, please let me know. Victor versus Assassin. Here we want to go second. Again, Tempo's king here. Going to the sideboard, plus 3 Zealous, plus 3 Trons, plus 2 Macho Grande. After testing out Sledge, we tested out playing 66 cards. Everything just felt wrong. Then I started playing the matchup way more aggressive and then adding the Macho Grandes in, and it showed very good results. Normally I fatigue them through deck damage or I just straight up kill them. It's been a pretty easy matchup for me. Besides Leave No Witnesses, Surgical Extraction, and Checkdown, most of the cards don't actually do anything impactful. You can just ignore them. Very aggressive unless they present these cards, and then you can play accordingly. Again, similar to a lot of matchups, most of their damage is fake. Just be aggressive, play a beatdown game plan, but obviously do block accordingly. If the context, if you have an extra card in your hand that you don't need, go ahead and throw some in there. Keep your left total high if you need to, but you can be pretty aggressive into Assassin. Victor versus Max Nitro. First matchup, we're going to go second. We're going to be taking out 3 Chokeslam, adding 2 CNC, adding 2 Macho, adding 1 Palv, adding 2 Pummel, adding 3 Trounce, adding 3 Zealous Belting. We're going to be playing the beatdown game plan and kill them before they mine their mech suit. Most turn cycles they actually won't send more than 6, and it won't have any on hits. Unfortunately, if they do resolve their mech suit and are above about 15 life, the likelihood of them of winning goes down a lot, and their likelihood goes up a lot. Reason being is normally they're going to have a high octane and possibly a twin drive, but realistically just the high octane is all that matters. And they're going to be able to 30 or 40 you, and you're just going to search their hand and not be able to do much about it. And also, their suit has temper 5, so they just also gain a bunch of effective life, and they're able to block breakpoints like pretty easily. So, yeah, probably don't let them get the mech suit. Victor versus Tekla Lawson. This matchup, we're going to go second. We're going to be adding 2 CNC, 2 Macho Grande, 1 Palv, 2 Pummel, 3 Trounce, 3 Zealous, 3 Staunch. This matchup is unfortunately very inconsistent. The reason why I say that is there will be times where they just get all their evils out early, and they just like pound you into the dirt, and then people are going to laugh at you because you lost to Tekla Lawson. There'll be other times where they just struggle to get evils out because of the pressure you're putting on, and they just never did the game, and you're like, wow, somehow I ended the game with the same card in Arsenal and the exact same life. This seems pretty lame. The majority of the games, you're actually going to be the beatdown. You're going to be just smacking the Tekla around with little no remorse. And they're going to block out the best they can unless they have an Evo in hand. Most Evos are plus 5 HP and can be refreshed, quote unquote, by using a new Evo on top. You do not want to use your armor unless they have flipped into their demi-hero, or it's a very key attack with overpower that you otherwise cannot block and is important, so normally just lethal. That's about the only time I think that it's probably important enough. Victor versus Betsy and Dio. Both of the matchups, I want to go second. I'll be completely honest, I've been able to just to do anything against these heroes. I've even like tested out new ideas, and it's been against these new heroes, and I've not lost to them yet. Is it player skill? Is it deck? I don't know yet. I don't have nothing for you. For right now, using against Betsy, I just use the Guardian sideboard versus Dio. I just kind of just put in whatever feels nice. I'll be completely honest, and I just fatigue her or I just kill her, either or. You'll probably just kill her because she runs on a no blocks and she kind of needs cards. Next, we're going to go to the Victor Fundamentals section. Start with Clashing Math. So here I actually used a clashing tool calculator thing. Shout out to the Golden Suns Discord for this clashing tool. What this did is this took the deck list that we see and the latest successful list that I've seen on February, or in the case of some decks, the latest tournament winning list, and we put into a calculator and we found the odds of clashing. Now, one thing I want to talk about before we actually talk about the numbers is these numbers are actually worse than they appear. So every time you clash, you're actually removing a card that hurts your clashes, because most of the time your clash cards will not win clashes. Like sometimes Clash of Bigger will win a clash, sometimes, not all the time. But when it comes, obviously, your block ones, if you use one, that's one less one you can see, so your numbers again get better. So a few numbers that I want to talk about is first Brute. KO is absolutely atrocious. Your chance of winning a clash is 43%. Your chances of losing clash is 43%, and tying is 14%. While you might have equal win-loss percentage, I'm counting ties as losses, just because riskly you're running the block cards for their benefit of clashing, and if you combine the percentages, it's 57. And if you put it in that context, 57% of the time, I'm not going to win the clash. That makes the stats. That just makes life way worse. So, KO is one of the few decks that I do not clash against if I do not have to. Going on to the other brutes, Rhinar, pretty respectable, 58% win rate. I like clashing there. Levy is a mixed bag. So, while both of them are at 55, 58, the whole reason I'm fine with clashing in them still is their benefit off of the token, specifically Trout, isn't as big as KO. Like I said, KO, like, Trout's is such a good card where I would almost want to say F it and run it. But the downside of us losing is just too great. Where versus Levy and Rhinar, I just do not believe that there is a big enough downside. Speaking of downside, let's go to the Guardian matchups. For Betsy, you have a 58, 27, 15% clash. Versus Bravo, you have 54, 29, 17. And then you have the atrocious Victor Mirror, where it's 45, 40, 15. Now, against Victor, I do not clash if I do not have to. Versus Betsy, weirdly enough, I'm actually fine with clashing. And most people have questioned this. The reason why is because specifically Trounce and Test Rings both make gold tokens, which then turns on her helmet to be able to get free overpower. But we've talked about this before. Most of her damage is fake. I'm not really worried about most of her damage. If she wants to play that like racing game and like try to really get overpower over the top of me, I'm just gonna kill her. It's just kind of that simple. For Bravo, it's super interesting. It also does depend on the configuration of the Bravo. I have seen some lists add some bigger attacks, like add the Pulves, add the Red Thunderquakes. So this number might be a little bit worse than it's showing currently. But as of right now, I don't really mind clashing against them all the time. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. But we'll take one more moment, and we'll let you guys look at these percentages. And let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about secret clash value. One of the most undervalued parts of clashing is known information. Showing cards on top of the deck can actually dictate future turn cycles. So, presenting the battlefield, we're going against Fire, Rising, Rebelling as Victor, and we have Grindstone and Blue Thunderquake in hand. Fire obviously is on Everblade and is throwing Snatch. We block with Test of Strength to block it out. And they reveal Art of War, we reveal Test of Strength, so this is a tie. So, we find ourselves in a rare situation where a clash tie is actually better than a clash win. We see that the Art of War and the Test of Strength is on top. What does this tell us? They send a 3-power attack, we put the Test of Strength in there, and we can actually deny the on hit. So what's going to happen is they're going to come with like a Spreading Flames or Run Renegade, and they're going to try to Art of War it up to 4, where if we just present the 4, yes, they might still Art of War, we just prevent the straight up on hit. This works the same against any Art of War deck that Art of War is in reactions. Also, we know not to attack with Grindstone because we know more likely than not we're going to lose the clash, losing a counter on our weapon, and we would rather just arsenal the Thunderquake and prepare ourselves for the Art of War turn. So going on to the next scenario, we have that exact same 5, swinging Everblade. We saw Grindstone and Thunderquake in hand. We're going to block with Trounce. We're going to reveal a CNC and then a Thunk. They're going to reveal an Art of War, and then they're going to reveal a Soul Beat Strike. So again, we find very valuable info from clashing. We see our CNC is now at the bottom of our deck as one of our best cards, so we can plan accordingly and know that we won't have access to that very powerful card in the matchup. Two huge things that we see from the 5 side. We know one of the Art of Wars at the bottom of their deck, and the only way for them to see it again is the reshuffle effect, so we can start trying to go harder at stopping their links. And denying them that reshuffle effect, even though they're technically not guaranteed to draw it sooner because it's an equal chance to draw anything. Just any way we can make it harder for them to draw their powerful cards, we will do. Also, the fact that we do see a blue can tell us that a 1-mana attack into Everblade is very likely. So someone might say, well, Siphon, why does that matter? They were going to do it anyway. Just knowing the most information possible in any turn cycle is very important. In this type of situation, there's no useless information. This is all helpful information. This is all gaining us something. Next, off of a clash, we revealed a Thunk, and we have a Chokeslam and a Thunderquake in hand. We go to our turn, Tunic just hits 2, and we have a gold token, and we have Miller's Grindstone. From the clash, we see a blue on top. We go to our turn, Tunic goes on 2. We cannot throw Chokeslam. With access to a gold token and knowledge at the top of our deck, we can pitch into go, draw blue, and now we have the ability to throw Chokeslam. So we go from just being able to throw Miller's Grindstone and it being 4 damage. Now we get to do I don't want to say like 10 to 12 because obviously it's never going to crush, which it's usually not going to crush. But if it does crush, it is just such big value. But at minimum, just because we're near the top of our deck, we just doubled the damage on our own turn. That's just sick. Honestly, just sick. Lastly, the hidden ability of Clash and Gold is Clash, and you see a powerful round top of your deck. You can actually pitch a card to the Gold. Receive your turn now having a powerful arsenal. So a situation that happened was I clashed with someone and I rolled a Spinal Crush. I had go again, and what I did is I pitched a gold. I drew the Spinal Crush, did whatever else I was going to do, and then I arsenaled the Spinal Crush, where then I was able to block 6 on the following turn cycle, and then still present Spinal Crush, where if we would have done the first scenario and not done anything, I would have had that exact same Spinal Crush. If I wanted to throw it, I would have had to block 3 and then summon Spinal Crush, so effectively the gold just gave me through life. And that's not something people are going to talk about, is just how gold can just gain you life. Going on to the Guardian Flow State, I will be referring to things as SS, Guardian Flow State, or GFS, the Guardian Flow State. In short term, this when you're able to autopilot and chain turns together without much thought. 2 to 3 card hands are our bread and butter, and obviously over here we have things like Chokeslam and Debilitate, working really well for Tunic and a blue, and we have Each Strike, which is the king of a 2-card hand. And then we have our hands that are really, really good on 2 blues. Obviously, Thunderquake coming in for 10s. Disable coming in for 7, but with an on hit, and then usually Zealous and the Hammer is a really powerful play. In games where drawing blue heavy hands can be hurtful, you actually still have access to a 13 value turn cycle every single turn. You can block 9, 12 if you have 3 touches in the hand. I would put it out there still. And you can swing Hammer for 4. Again, block 9, swing 4, 13 points of value. That's awesome. You can also look at this hand, and you can have a couple different actual paths. You can choose to block 3, send a 5 or 6 cost attack for 7 to 10 damage. And lines like this are better in beatdown games where your cards actually have more value in offense than they have defense. And for most people, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, how can my cards have more value in offense or defense? You can kind of know if blocking important on hits and saving life is more important, then your cards are worth more value on defense. Vice versa, if you can be very free to life total and you don't go under much pressure, your cards are much more value on offense. There is a time where Thunderquake blocking for 3 is better than Thunderquake being set for 10. Tunic Sledge is 15 value. Blocking 9 using a blue and Tunic to send Sledge is the sole reason we run Sledge over Anthos. And this is such a common play where even a lot of times blocking 6 is usually fine. If I can block 9, take no damage, swing 6, they give me 2 cards, I'm just starting to win the turn cycle like it's nothing. Because then they'll be on a 2-card hand, and I'll be on a 4-card hand, and a lot of times that won't be able to really threaten me much. And I can start eking out a lot of value that way. Specifically talking about E-Strike. E-Strike is the most diverse card in their deck. And how we use all of its modes is we can choose draw card when we know we have a powerful card on top of our deck. And we can have access to an arsenal. We can choose +2 damage, 7 damage from 2 cards. It's not much we can ask for, it's pretty good. And we can choose go again. Normally this means our turn cycle damage would be about 9. Allowing us to win more turn cycles, obviously again, as long as we blocked a little bit. Lastly, with the amount of reds that we play in this list, we can play on red heavy hands or turn blues into more damage. Using the flow state. With all these turns, learning the Guardian flow state, you can quickly evaluate how to play out your own turn cycles, with some matchups dragging out if your opponent is not willing to trade damage with you. Instead of blocking out, some games will take a long time for you to finish a new action game percentage points and win more games just because less games go to time. You have less ties, and also when the game goes like 5 minutes left, you're not having to like rush through turns and like have to think about where if you saved a bunch of time early game thinking if you do have to think super late game, you have the ability to. Where if you just play at a very slow pace, very methodical pace throughout the most of the game, you may not have access to that if your opponent is not willing to actually progress the game. Talking about card choices. So starting with weapons, we have Sledge, we have Anthos, Titan's Fist, and Miller's Grindstone. So the first 2 weapons I believe occupy the same slot is Miller's Grindstone and Titan's Fist. I think there are metas where you can play one but never both. Titan's Fist is very consistent but lacks no upside. It is just okay, which is fine in a lot of metas, honestly. It's just fine. Grindstone offers impact adjacent to one as well. In no way I'm saying it's this one as well. What I'm saying is it just gives you an additional benefit for the exact same amount of damage. The deck burn requirement is also not as heavy as one as well, but comes with the possible downside of losing damage. We don't rely on our weapon swing a ton in a lot of these matchups, so at this time, the downside of Grindstone just isn't really common. Next, Sledge versus Anthos. Currently using Sledge over Anthos for one reason. Sledge has the ability to be a 1-card 6, while Anthos cannot reach that number. Sledge does rely on Tunic / Vigor Token to have that upside, where Anthos does have the floor of always being a 4. And when you're really looking at Illusionist, that is where Sledge is underperformed, and Anthos just outperforms it by a mile. Both cards work well in a tech playing show, but Tunic Sledge just gets extra points. You can run Tunic Anthos, and there will be some amount of times where you're just getting 4 damage on your card instead of 6, and you're just going to use that Tunic counter where take that exact same hand with that exact same blue. Instead of doing 4, you dealt 6, and that's just +2 damage. And we do that 3 times at 6 damage, and it can just slowly add up over that, especially in a Guardian Mirror where just that kind of raw damage is very important. Then we're talking about Tunic versus Plating. Both cards have clear upsides, with Tunic having the only downside of never being able to block, so you just lose 3 HP. In a more aggressive show, or if you choose to add more 5 to 6 costed attacks, Plating gains a lot of mileage, or if we end up swatching the AFO side, would also like tech Plating a little bit more. The value of Tunic is the Seismic Surge whenever you need it. It also allows you to do very powerful plays like Zealous Belting into Pommel or CNC Pommel, and those plays just become very, very clean and less clunky and obvious. But this is honestly just a personal choice. Both of them do require some amount of deck building restrictions. I don't think any of these are objectively wrong. It's just, would you like to be a little more aggressive and have a few different attacks, or would you like to be a little more efficient? Going into the test of cycle, we have test of strength, test of vigor, test of might, and they all get corresponding tokens of gold, vigor, and might. All of the block cards have minimum 4 points of value, but normally exceed that due to what the token translates into. For example, the vigor token could mean you can block an extra 3 damage with the card, gain the vigor token, and still send your attack now, where that test was now worth 8 points of value. Obviously, the 4 block being 4, the resource making it 5, the fact that you block with another card, in theory, is 8. Even though the card itself does not block 8, it just what it allows you to do. And when you look at that, and you just look at this test of vigor and it's 8 points of value, or this test of strength and it's 8 plus points of value, you kind of look at every other deck and ask them why they're not doing the same thing. Test of Might is the only one in here that, if we were to play it, it'd be strictly for its block value. There are times where the +1 on a card like CNC or Spinal Crush does change the entire turn cycle, but it doesn't happen often enough for me to want to sacrifice any of deck space to run it. So why not more 4/8s? The 4/8s are obviously very powerful, talking about Bucking Blow and Mangle, and this also does talk about things like Righteous Cleansing. Why don't we play those? There was a long time where I actually played Mangle and Righteous Cleansing. And we come to the issue where like the crushes just aren't doing enough. One, they're almost never going to crush against like a Guardian or like a Warrior, so it's kind of pointless there. And to the decks where the crush probably is hitting, they don't care. They literally just don't care. So we are more off of those than on those. There will be a meta where those are more relevant, and then we can add those to the deck. But for right now, we just don't live in that life. Talking about No Rune Boots versus Arcane Lantern. The only reason we're on Arcane Lantern is Tomotai cannot destroy Arcane Lantern due to having no block value. If for some odd reason draw my LLs like tomorrow, I'm so down to re-add No Rune Boots. Not having to worry about Tomotai, but for right now we will have to worry about Tomotai. Talking about the art of turn cycle math and AVPT and ADPOC. In all games, you can break blocking down to generic science. You can block with 3 cards, leave a blue, swing back 4 for 13 points of value. Or you can block 6, swing the bullet tape for 8 with a tunic, that is 14, 16 if it crushes. Or you can block 3, swing red Thunderquake for 10, and that's 13 points of value. Those numbers now. Okay, let's think. How do we win the turn cycle? The big thing is you don't need to win a turn cycle by 100. You don't. If it's won by 1, it's still winning. Knowing when you need to use majority of your value on offense or defense is key. Some of the on-hits matter, some of the on-hits don't. Honestly, it's very contextual, and this is something you're going to figure out on the fly. On-hits do, again, change the math on some cards. One example I do want to give you real quick of, I did briefly talk about earlier, I want to touch on it again, where if we look at the block with 3 cards, swing 4 is 13 points of value, and the block 3 swing red Thunderquake is also 13 points of value. Somebody would say, well, yeah, my life total is 6 higher, and I'm doing the exact same amount of damage, and also having the on-hit Miller's Grindstone. Contextually, in some matches, that is actually better. But in the matchups, again, where your cards are actually more impactful on offense than they are defense, That's when you're going to want to get the mileage out of the 10 damage, especially versus decks that cannot block it well. Even though it doesn't have an on hit, it is just a fourth of their life that they're not going to want to take a lot of the times. So even sometimes just setting the 10, even if it is the exact same efficiency as something else, what it does to the opponent is actually sometimes scarier than it leads on to be. AVPT, if you guys have seen that term, equals average value per turn. ADPOC equals average damage per offensive card. Now let me guys ask you a question. This is not a trick question. What sounds better? A 2 card 8 or a 3 card 9? 2 card 8, 3 card 9. Obviously, with those values, 9 is just more damage. And that's also 3 damage per card. That's average. That's pretty cool. But the 2 card 8 is actually 4 damage per card. And using 2 cards still 8, you do 8 divided by 2 is 4. And you do 3 cards to deal 9 damage is 3 divided by 9. That's what the deck is doing. It's here to actually maximize these two values. What these values also will do is because you can actually use less cards to deal similar amounts of damage, you can actually block more, which then leads you to have a higher effective life, and that's how we get to some of these really crazy numbers, like this. So I'll kind of have you guys pause here, and we'll just look at these numbers, and let's just look at the context of what some of this means. So let's start with the top left one. On average, I drew my 4-card hand, and between their turn cycle and my turn cycle, I was getting 16 points of value out of that hand. 16. Most hands are built to get like 11 to 13, to sometimes 14 points of value. I'm averaging 16 over a decent chunk of a game. Like these are not short games. Like the 7-4-1 you can say is like a little of a short game, sure. But like over 102 damage or something, that must mean the game went on for a decent amount of time. Or I just hired the living piss out of them. But that would actually hurt some of these stats where all the stats that you see this turn is just awesome. And like where you can see it is a long game is if you look here, average damage threat per turn is 7. If you round up, it's 8. So this wasn't even a high roll. And I was doing on average 3.5 to 4 per turn. This game was legendary, and I actually don't remember which one this was, the 16.86. I remember everyone on Twitter was just going like, oh my gosh, I have to see your build. Oh my gosh, I have to see your build. And I was just like, I don't remember. I don't know why it's that big. Even though I know I built the deck to do it, I actually don't know how I got that kind of number. What type of sauce I was doing. I mean, you can kind of look at this where the average damage thrown per turn was 11. So what we probably can assume is I found a lot of go again. Almost every single turn, but that means it's go again into an actual attack. But still, that means I'm also blocking a decent amount to still get that high of a number. And like this is, dude, 4.8 per offensive card. When we just talked about like 3s like on average, a little higher 3s on average, we're getting 4.8. Like, deck's crazy, guys. Deck is crazy. Talking about the art of blocking. So we have an example hand from Phi with a single blue. They can go Mounting Anger into Searing Everblade, into Blaze Headlong, into Phoenix Flame. That is 13 damage, and they can trigger Massive Pounce Links 3 different times if they were to all hit. 2 of them bring breakpoints. And let's say in this example, you give the Phi 2 cards of Mounting Anger. Obviously, you don't want that card to hit. And you give a card on the Everblade. It's probably a clean block. Now you only have 1 card for the rest of the turn. Now you leave yourself to get punished by reactions or anything at the end of the chain like a Lava Burst. Now you must choose to block, prevent on hits, which is going to be much harder, or fire back and move the Phi down, which leads you to take more damage, which is leading into what the Phi wants. But now, I wouldn't blame people for blocking like this. It does seem very obvious. Stop the Mounting Air on hit, get the extra value. The Everblade is just a clean block because it comes in for 3, your cards block for 3. And I even sometimes still get into bad habits like this, where I just block incorrectly. Especially against Phi and other aggro decks. But once you start noticing their play patterns, and you notice your patterns of blocking bad, you can actually improve it a lot. And you can sense when combat tricks are coming, and once you start blocking out aggro decks efficiently, their decks just kind of suck. Most aggro decks are allowing you blocking like a donkey, and if you don't block like a donkey, you can win most of those games. Moving on to Dorinthia. We have Dorinthia playing Sharpened Steel, swinging Dawnblade. You will block with a card. You will turn the reprise from Alpha Blood and sing Stillblade. They're going to get Glint Quicksilver. They're going to play Glint Quicksilver. They're going to get Blade Fury. They're going to Blade Fury, give it +2. Because they have Go again, and plus they have a resource, they're going to use the Dorinthia to swing Dawnblade again, which is getting pumped by Blade Fury. So, assuming, again, you block with a card from hand, this threatens 15 damage, and Dawnblade getting a counter. No, I actually do remember this is a slight different to change, but the principle here is the same, obviously. With only one less damage coming from the door, the threat level is actually way lower. Yes, the counter being semi-permanent can translate into danger later, but it's something you can handle. Just like Fi, she can threaten drawing in the middle of the turn, and actually did successfully, but didn't translate into the same advantage that Fi gains. Not blocking actually changes that whole entire turn. Let's actually go back. So let's say she does Sharpen Steel Dawnblade. She's coming in for 6. Let's say you say no block. She'll be like, okay, out for blood. Okay, it's 9. Now what? They just pass. They literally just pass. Unless they have Brave Force Bases, the leg piece, they're not doing anything else. They dealt 9, which is like cool, but that's it. It's just 9. 9 vanilla. Nothing else to it. And that's all because you didn't block. With these two examples, they both had similar damage output, but write them at them very differently. The ability to dictate when you block is a minor powerful skill to have. I'm not telling you to never block or always block, but understanding how each hero arrives at their damage is something you need to take note of. Do want to touch on Brawl versus Victor specifically, and who is better. The current Guardian debate actually reminds me a lot of when Bravo and Odin was a hot debate whenever Tales of Aria got released. People did not want to play without Crippling Crush and Showtime. They see no reason to play Odin. But after some time, they understood their different decks trying to do different things, even when they shared a large part of the meta, and I think we're in the same situation now. Now, I'm not saying Victor is Odin. I am not saying Victor is Odin. I'm going to say one more time, I'm not saying Victor is Odin. But a lot of Victor players say they see a lot of similarities whenever they played Odin. There's a lot of Odin players that are just playing Victor right now for that exact reason of Victor just being that value-based, attrition-based hero, where Bravo just, I'll be real, is just, I don't know what nationality Bravo is, but whatever nationality he is, he's just there doing whatever they do. When it comes to Victor, most hands can always do something positive, and the ability to draw cards throughout the game. Give the deck a lot of firepower. Can both heroes be viable at the same time? I truly don't know. You can actually see, obviously because I'm re-recording this, is week 1 Victor way outperformed Bravo. A lot of Bravo players are on Victor. And I think they're seeing some of the things I'm seeing where, yeah, you don't get to play some of the really powerful cards that Bravo does, but the trade-off is not that big whenever you're getting something very powerful in another way. Like I said, I don't really know if they can both occupy the same space. Right now, I think Victor just has more edges than Bravo. Obviously, the advantage to Bravo is you can demand tempo, you have access to closing power, and you can actually beat your bad matchups where Victor doesn't really get that luxury very easily, where Bravo does. But Bravo does excel a little bit better at playing a smaller game and having higher impact, higher value Guardian turns more often. Alright guys, everyone breathe a sigh of relief. It's the end. I trust this guy raised your skill level as when it comes to playing Victor. If this is your introduction to the deck and you've learned a lot of fundamentals that took a long time to learn, that's awesome. If you're using this guide to figure out how to combat this deck, that is fine. I'm glad I could help. As long as you just don't use them to beat me, please just let me win. Obviously, the big takeaways that we learned today was how to block correctly, turn cycle math, and matchup knowledge. My socials, you can find me on YouTube at SiphonTCG. That's part where you're watching it right now. You can find me on Twitter at SiphonTCG. And if you see me on Discord at SiphonTCG with a Patrick, the star upside down, sweeping. Actually, I don't remember if I've changed my icon, to be honest. But Siphon4712, always feel free to reach out. A few people want to thank. I want to thank. I'm not gonna. The 17th Crawford brother, Sir Taylor Crawford on Twitter at JaceHelp. Two members of the Toxic Tip Boys, Anthony Eugene Ontario Vero at Vero Prodigy on Twitter. Some of the YouTubers that I watched whenever Victor first came out and gave me a lot of inspiration is Only Run Very Noob, AgroBlaze96, and BagoTCG. Also want to thank the official Flesh and Blood Global Discord. You guys were very helpful there. Anytime that I seen other people had questions, you guys were always quick there, and I was able to extract some of the information, because a lot of the information that came from this slide, with some things I wasn't familiar with, actually came from the Discord and a lot of their input. So obviously, if you were a person and you've seen some of your tips on here, go ahead and give yourself a round of applause. Give yourself a round of applause. You did a very good job. Lastly, everyone from Total Gaming Experience in Chillicothe, Ohio, I want to thank all of you guys, because I've either discussed the deck with you or played it against you guys, or you guys have played it into me, and it's been very helpful for wrapping my head around this weird hero that does a really funny thing every once in a while. Alright, guys, now I'm going to be Mr. Nice Guy. I'm not going to be Mr. Nice Guy. Why aren't you guys in the Discord? Why aren't you guys in the Discord? If you watch this video and you want to learn more about Victor, get in the Golden Suns Discord. Alternatively, if you really just want to see us all just coping because our hero's actually bad and we're all just like insane in a little corner just pretending our hero is like the next Darvo, why don't you join the Discord and watch us? There's no more excuses. Join the Discord. Guys, I want to thank you. This is my first big everything you need to know about video, and they're some of my most watched videos. The Dash one to this day is still my most watched video, and I expect the Victor one to be just as popular, because a lot of people are looking at how to play this Victor build, especially when the Pro Tour is coming up. People just want to learn. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment down what you guys want to see next. I'm going to go to sleep because my brain is literally like turning into soup right now, and I can feel myself just like fading. And I'm talking and I'm about to run out of breath. So if you guys want to help me out, please like, favorite, comment down below. It's been your boy Siphon from SiphonTCG. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.